Did you know it's National Seafood Month? October is National Seafood Month. And it just so happens that my wife and I were just in Ireland for about 2 weeks, and we had seafood chowder probably every other day for lunch. So that is just the epitome of seafood chowder, and they were all fantastic, some better than others. And so I wanted to come back and replicate what I've learned in Ireland, but I wanted to do it gluten-free because we have lots of clients and my wife who cannot tolerate gluten. So that's what we're doing today, a gluten-free seafood chowder. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below, and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. Of course, there's seafood chowder in every country, and especially in the United States. You know, we have clam chowder on the East Coast in the States, then we have the San Francisco style or the California style chowder in California. That is, they're all wonderful, but there's something about the Irish style of seafood chowder that is a little bit different. Perhaps it's the different seafoods that they use in it. But anyhow, that's what we're making today, is the Irish version of seafood chowder. So let's look at our ingredients. It looks like a lot of ingredients, but basically for chowder, you have your chowder base, and then you've got your seafood and any extras that go in it. It's really pretty simple. It's just that we have a lot of different fantastic seafoods that are in season right now here in France, and so that's what we're using. But to start our seafood chowder, our base is just going to be, we've got some leeks and some celery that we've chopped up, and we've done a fine chop on this. All right, so leeks and celery, and then we've got a large garlic that we've chopped up. It's just roughly chopped. And I'll tell you why in a minute that we've roughly chopped that. And also part of our base, because we are making this gluten-free, we're not using any flour, I'm not gonna make a roux or anything like that. We're using potatoes for starch. And potatoes are fantastic to create creaminess and that kind of thing because of the starch. So I've used a russet potato, and I've used a medium-sized russet potato. And this, along with our vegetables and a little bit of butter, are going to make our base for our chowder. And then we've got our seafood. Now we've got some butter here that we'll use to saute and sear our vegetables and that kind of thing. But as for our seafood, man, do we have some incredible seafood. We've got some fresh pollock here. We've got a little bit of fresh cod that I've cut up, and I've just cut these into fairly large chunks. These are about 1.5 to 2 inch size chunks. And we've got some smoked haddock, which is absolutely stunning. This is already cooked, of course, and so you don't have to cook it anymore. And I've just got it cut into about 1.5 inch chunks as well. Then we've got some beautiful fresh scallops. Scallops are in season here. And I have used, these are, I would say, medium large scallops. I mean, you could serve these as a single scallop, and what I've done is I've cut them in about thirds. If you have bay scallops, that works as well. And then we've got some shrimp that we'll just put in whole into our seafood. And then we've got some fantastic mussels. These mussels are from the local, from in the area here, and they're very fresh. And just a short thing about mussels and clams. We've got some clams as well. And I'll do a video eventually on these different seafoods, on scallops, on mussels and clams, how to shell them and how to prepare them. But the one thing you want to know is that if you go to the store and you buy your mussels or your clams, is that if the shell is open, then they are no good. You need to not use those. So as you clean your mussels and your clams, if the shell is open, then that mussel or clam needs to be discarded. So that's our seafood. And then we're just a couple of extras. I've got some waxy potatoes here. different from the russet potatoes. These are potatoes that I've left skin on. You could use Yukon Golds, you could use the little red potatoes, what have you, but these are make just a fantastic addition to our seafood chowder, as well as some fresh sweet corn. So those are our ingredients for the chowder. And to add to that, we've got some fresh homemade fish stock. And if you don't know how to make fish stock, just check the video right above and you can see I've done a video on how to make fish stock from scratch, because it is really the best way to make it. You could certainly, of course, use seafood fish bouillon, or you could use, in the States, you can actually buy seafood stock or fish stock that's already prepared. You can't find that here, so you have to make it from scratch. And then we've got a little bit of dry white wine. In this case, I've used what's called a Muscadet, which is a local white wine, which is a dry white wine. You could use a Chardonnay or a Pinot Grigio, what have you. This is only going to be used to deglaze the pan and create some depth of flavor to our dish. Then we've got some heavy cream, and that's going to help us with our creaminess of our soup. And we're going to finish it with some fresh parsley that we'll chop up very finely. We've got some white pepper, salt to season it. We'll do a little squeeze of lemon juice. I've said before in my videos, if you've seen them before, if you have a sauce or a soup or something that seems a little bit heavy, you can always do a squeeze of lemon juice or some kind of vinegar or some kind of acid to kind of lighten that up a little bit. So those are our ingredients. Let's start cooking. To get started with our chowder, what we're going to do is we're just going to melt a little bit of our butter in our pot. So probably a tablespoon, tablespoon and a half. We'll turn that up. We'll get that melting. And what we're going to do is we're going to sweat basically our leeks and our celery. Once this starts melting a little bit, I'm just going to add a little bit more to that. While our butter is melting, we're just going to go ahead and season our fish just with a little bit of salt and pepper. And we'll season our scallops as well, and our shrimp. And because we're making a white a chowder, and it's going to be a white sauce, we're going to use white pepper to season everything with. And now let's add our vegetables. And we're just going to gently sweat those vegetables, and sweating just literally means to cook them until they're soft and translucent, and they start to release some of their moisture. And we always add a little bit of salt. That helps the cooking process along, and it also starts to flavor the dish as well. So we're just going to sweat those, and right now I've got the heat over a medium high, and once things start cooking, we'll turn it down and we'll let it go over medium for probably about 5 minutes. And we'll just stir them every once in a while until they're nice and soft. Okay, our vegetables are getting really nice and soft, so we're going to go ahead and add our garlic at this point. And of course, the reason we don't add the garlic at the beginning is that the garlic, garlic tends to burn quickly if you cook it too fast over too high heat, and so it just takes less time to cook than other vegetables. So we're just going to cook and stir the garlic for a little bit, and wow, the fragrance is absolutely already amazing. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, because we're going to be adding some potatoes to this, and we just need a little bit more oil in the pan, because we want to just cook our potatoes, just kind of gently saute them. And we'll go ahead and add those. And again, these are the russet potatoes. And the reason we're using russets, again, is because they are quite starchy. By the way, we didn't rinse these potatoes. They're not rinsed. And you know, the reason that you rinse potatoes, especially if you're making French fries or something like that, is that they have lots of starch. But in this case, we want that starch. And so we've left that there, and we just want to saute these for just a little bit, and then we'll move on with our recipe. Okay, our potatoes are cooking nicely, and we want to cook these until they're a little bit soft. But what we're going to do is once we see that they are starting to kind of get a little bit tender, we're then going to add our fish stock to this. So let's just take one out and see where we are. You could actually use your tongs to see where you could squeeze it and see if it's starting to cook, and it's not yet. So we're just going to leave those for a little bit longer, and just every once in a while just reach in and give it a nice stir. And we're not really looking for color on these potatoes. We're just looking for for them to start cooking. And we'll finish it with the stock, with the boiling of the stock. Once you start seeing just a little bit of color on your potatoes or some of your vegetables, then like that, then it is time. In fact, let's just taste it. Wow. Tastes fantastic already. I'm going to go ahead and season this just a little bit. We already, of course, seasoned the leeks and celery, but we didn't season the potatoes, so we'll go ahead and season those a little bit. And let's add a little bit of white pepper to our seasoning. And it's already just a great flavor. So once you get to this point, what we're going to do is we're going to add about, I don't know, 3 or 4 cups of our stock. So let's just pour that in like that, maybe a little bit more. What we want to do is bring this to the boil and completely cook our potatoes until they're nice and soft. And then we're going to use our submersible blender and blend this. And that's going to give us our creamy base. So we'll let this come up to the boil, and when it does that, we'll blend it with our blender. Okay, as you can see, I went ahead and covered up my pot just a little bit, just partially, just to get things moving. And things are moving right along. We're boiling, and let's just test and see how soft our potatoes are. And that'll tell us whether we're ready to move forward or not. Oh, absolutely perfect. So what we're going to do now is take this off the heat, and we are going to blend this to get our soup base. And in the meantime, we'll go ahead and put our large pot on the heat with a little bit of butter and olive oil and get those melting, and we'll start to cook our seafood. Our potatoes and our vegetable combination have boiled and they're very soft. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to blend that to get a nice creamy consistency. As you can see, it's getting nice and creamy with that starch from the potatoes. I'm using a submersible blender for this. You could certainly do this using a stand blender. You would need to probably do it in a couple of different steps, and it would work, but it's really a lot easier to do it with your submersible blender. Okay, so that's great. Now what we've created is basically the same thing we would have created if we had made a roux from the very beginning using flour and butter. And look at that. It's basically the same as a nice creamy roux. It tastes fantastic, and it's not over seasoned, But that is now going to be the base for our chowder. All right, what we'll do now is, since we've got our base for our chowder, is we're now going to add our potatoes that are actually going to be part of the chowder. So we're going to put those in, and we'll let this come to the boil to actually cook these potatoes. And I think that's enough. I don't want to add all of them because we have a lot of seafood that we're going to be using. So we're going to put this on a back burner, let that come to the boil, and start boiling our potatoes. In the meantime, we're starting to melt a little bit of butter and a little bit of olive oil, and we are going to start to cook our fish. So the thing about the fish is that we are going to cook our whitefish, our cod, and our haddock, or our pollock. We are not going to, of course, our haddock is already smoked, so we'll just add that at the last minute. And we'll cook our fish and our scallops. But we don't want to overcook them, so we're going to cook them, and then we're going to move them to a pan just to keep them warm. All right. Okay, our butter and oil are nice and hot, so we are just going to put our seafood in and let that start searing and sauteing. Again, we've seasoned this lightly with a little bit of salt and some white pepper. So we just want to cook this. We're going to let it go ahead and saute, and we want to start it, browning a little bit, and we'll turn them and let them cook on the other side, and then we were going to remove all of the seafood from the pan, and we'll cook our clams and our mussels. In this case today, normally we would be adding our shrimp in with this, but because we have someone who is allergic to shrimp, we're actually going to cook the shrimp separately, but then we'll add it in at the very in the different plates, in the different servings. In the meantime, our potatoes that are going to be part of the actual chowder are just boiling away and getting nice and soft in the other pot. So let's go ahead and turn these. It just doesn't take very long for fish to cook, so we're just going to cook this gently. Then we'll put our mollusks in. Mollusks are anything that are a mussel within two, they're called a bivalve. They're within two shells. Okay, our fish has turned white and it is ready to go. So we are now going to take the fish out, and we're just going to reserve it so that we don't overcook it. And wow, just look at all of that wonderful, that flavor that's left in the bottom of the pot. And we're just going to put this in a warm oven, just a gently warmed oven. It's not hot. It's just enough to keep everything warm. So we're just going to let this come back up to heat, and we're going to add a little bit of oil and butter so that we can cook our mussels and our clams. Our pan is hot. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil to our pan, because now what we're going to do is basically saute our mussels and our clams. So we will just throw those into the pan. Just like that. And now what we'll do is we're going to add our white wine, basically to deglaze the pan, and also it's going to flavor our dish here. So, and we're going to cook this basically until the wine is really evaporated. So we're over a high heat. We want to go ahead and bring this heat up and let that wine start evaporating. As a matter of fact, you can literally put the lid on, because this is the way that you would normally do mussels or clams if you were just cooking mussels and clams. And we can shake it around a little bit. Just to get everything shaken up. And Wonderful. Some of them have actually already started opening up. But what we're going to do now is we're now going to add our other seafood base, our chowder base. We're going to add that into the pot with these mussels and clams. This has our potatoes in it. And I can tell right now that the mixture is going to be a little bit thick. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more of my chicken stock at this point, or my fish stock at this point. And we just want to bring that to the boil. And once this comes to the boil, we'll then add the rest of our seafood, our smoked haddock, and then we'll add our corn, really just to heat it through. And in the meantime, we'll saute our shrimp in it separately. Okay, we've got our mussels and clams in the pot, and we're bringing those to the boil. And we're now going to add our heavy cream into the pot. And as I can see that lots of our clams and mussels have opened up. So the ones that are opened up, we can start removing them. And if they're not open, if you have any of them that don't open, then you need to actually remove them and toss them away. So as I can see, most of these have opened up. So we're going to set them aside. And it's okay, we're getting a few of our potatoes in there, but that's okay. We can just take those back. We just don't want our mussels and clams to overcook. Now, this one has not opened up, so we're going to put that back in and see if it opens up. And if it doesn't, we will toss it out. And the same with that one. In the meantime, we can now add in our smoked haddock and our corn, really just to get them warmed through. And again, we may have more corn than we need, so we don't need to add all of the corn. Oh, absolutely beautiful. And we will let that cook. In the meantime, we will saute our shrimp, and then we'll add those to the pot. Okay, we are good to go here. We have cooked our clams and our mussels. And now if you want to, you can certainly take some of these clams and mussels. You can actually take the meat out of the shells for your presentation. In this case, we're just going to add everything back into the pot and make sure everything is nice and cooked through. Let's give it a try. Let's give it a taste. It's fantastic. In this case, we can use a little bit more salt because I really under-seasoned everything from the very beginning, mainly because I knew we had the smoked haddock, which is already quite salty. But we could certainly use a little bit more salt in this. And it's not heavy. If it was really heavy, just feeling like it was really, really weighed down, we could certainly add a little bit of lemon juice to brighten it up, which never hurts anything anyhow. You could certainly always do that, add a little bit of lemon juice. So let me just make sure I'm clear on the shells for the mussels and the clams. If you buy mussels and clams from a store and they're still in the shell, they should be alive. If they're alive, they should be the shell should be closed when you buy them. And after you clean them and everything, the shell should be closed. And if the shell is open, then you need to discard that particular one. But then once you cook them, the shell should open. And if you're cooking them and any of the shells do not open, then those are no good as well. So then you need to discard those. So basically, before you cook them, the shells need to be closed. After you cook them, the shells need to be open. Just make sure you've got that part. And we are ready to serve this up now. I've done a gentle seasoning with basically salt and pepper. We're going to add a little bit of Espelette as a garnish. You could add a little bit of red pepper. You could add some smoked paprika. We're going to add some parsley. But anything that you would like to add at that point for the garnish would be fantastic. And we are ready to serve this up. All right, we've got a nice warm bowl here, and looks fantastic. Let's get a little bit of that broth. Okay, a little bit more garnish with our parsley. Beautiful. Okay, we are ready to give this chowder a taste. And man, it absolutely looks beautiful. And we've paired this today with a local wine. It's called a Muscadet. And Muscadet is a grape it's a dry white grape that is absolutely delicious with seafood. And so, from this area, because there's so many different species of fish in the Loire River and in the surrounding area, as well as the Atlantic, of course, this is a perfect pairing. So if you can't find Muscadet, if you've got a Chardonnay, if you've got a Pinot Grigio, any of those, even a Sauvignon Blanc will go great with this seafood chowder, along with a wonderful French baguette. Let's just give it a try. It's very creamy, and of course you can't really tell that the cream at the base is because of the potato that was in it, but it makes a wonderful, wonderful, nice creamy base. I had a little bit of bite of the smoked haddock in there, and that's just fantastic. Let's try a little bit with the white fish. It is absolutely fantastic. And we finished this with some paprika, with some parsley, and a little bit of Espelette pepper. I've talked about Espelette pepper before, and it's Espelette, Espelette. And Espelette pepper is a pepper from the Basque region of southern France and northern Spain, and it's similar to the smoked paprika. So if you can't find Espelette where you are, you can always add a little bit of smoked paprika into it, or a little bit of cayenne pepper. That has a little bit more heat than an Espelette does, but it's just a very unique flavor. And it just goes very, very well with this chowder. I hope you'll give this a try. You can see how easy it is, really, once you have your preparation done, your seafood cut up, etc. So if you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up below, hit that like button, and be sure and subscribe to our channel. And when you subscribe, hit that bell so that you are notified every time we release a new video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.